Welcome everybody on Zoom. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Stacy, I see you. I see Rich. I think you two are it on the Zoom. Maybe we'll get other people. In the room we have Ray and Jason and Jack. Will, thank you for being our audiovisual.
Stacy, just in case you're not aware, there's a raging blizzard outside.
Huge snowstorm.
Oh, is there? I'm not aware.
Yeah. We know where you are now.
Yeah. It's raining.
Good, that makes me feel better. Let's call the meeting to order. This is the monthly meeting of the Reading Planning Commission and nominally ZBA also, although we haven't really convened separate ZBA meetings, but they get kind of folded in here, and if we actually need to convene one, it's just a reminder, we will do so if there are any ZBA issues. Thank you for changing the time from the first, what do we usually do, the first Wednesday now to this Wednesday. I had a conflict earlier, so thanks for that accommodation. Any changes to the agenda before we carry on?
No.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of December 3rd, 2025.
I motion to approve the minutes.
I had a note from the last meeting to replace any mention of city center with village center, and I have made that adjustment noted on these minutes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else changes to those minutes that anyone saw? All right.
No, I'll second them.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes of December 3rd? Okay, they are approved, thank you. Reports, mail and email.
I honestly haven't checked.
Okay. I did check the mailbox yesterday in the physical mailbox, and there was nothing. And I have not seen anything in the email. So if there's anything pressing in there, we'll pick it up for the next meeting. Regional Planning Commission announcements usually comes from Kathy, but we have you here to talk about lots of other things. Are there any announcements in a kind of general marquee kind of way?
Not really, no. I think we're going to talk about the regional plan. That's probably the main thing. We're trying to submit that for the preliminary review by the state towards the end of February. So that's our main focus at the moment. But we're watching the legislature in terms of money. So it's looking a little tight these days. But
So is that affects your funding and your budgeting and your capacity to...
Ours as well as how it affects towns, yeah. It's early days, so, but transportation's looking a little rough.
Yeah.
And emergency planning is not so good either. But our basic planning money is looking good. Municipal planning grants is looking reasonably good. So, we'll see. We'll see how it unfolds over the year.
Okay. Thanks. Keep us posted if there's anything interesting out of that.
Yep.
This is, we always have Energy Board listed in case they want to come and update us. I don't think this is sort of their quarterly time for an update, and I have not heard anything from the Energy Board.
I do think on our end too, the building energy improvements are ongoing, and they're working hard on that. That's all I know, but they're making progress, I think.
Great. Well, Reading is lucky to have a really energized and knowledgeable Energy Board, which is incredible. So they've done some pretty cool stuff with the solar arrays and some of the winterizing.
Heat pumps.
Heat pumps, I know, it's kind of cozy here now. Zoning administrator could not make it tonight, and I don't think there's anything to report that is an active matter before this committee at this time. So there might be something down the road, but right now I am not aware of any requests from him for us to do anything. ZBA?
Nothing to report.
Okay. All right, moving on. Number 5, the big reason we're all here tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about these maps from Mount Regional Commission. We have a big new map, Stacy, but you'll have to look at the one on your computer. I think it's mostly the same as we got from Jason and Kellen recently, but you might want to open those because we'll be comparing them to the last ones. We're going to talk about these mapping and the types of land use categories that the state is asking the regional commission to implement, and our designation of village centers. And I'm still kind of hoping we can expand our village center and maybe have Hammondsville as also a village center, but we're going to talk about that. We also are still looking for feedback on Class 4 roads. If we have time tonight, we can touch on that. And Jason, before you go, I would love to talk to you about starting that kind of survey. Brian,
He is here.
of roads and their uses. So maybe we can touch on that briefly.
Sure.
And that is kind of the focus for tonight for our agenda. Did you have anything you wanted to communicate, Brian, from the Energy Board?
I wasn't here for that, but I
Okay.
could do something really quickly if you
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
1.5 minutes.
Yeah, you want to give us a little report?
Sure. Probably the biggest news just to close 2025 is that we did get the $33,000 from the federal government as the rebate for the solar array, which was, I don't know, it was in question, I suppose, given everything that's happening. So that was terrific.
Is that federal money or
It's
state?
federal money, so it was part of the.
So we got 33 grand.
So it just came back to the town. And that was part of the financial case that we made to the town was when we talked about payback periods and everything was under the assumption, under the laws at the time, that like this would be something that would happen. So we really did thread a needle because you can't do that now. Like if you were to apply now, that would not work. So
Good job.
So yeah, so we're really grateful for that. So and then the big focus for this year, really, for the Energy Committee is around continuing to implement the Municipal Energy Resilience Program grant that we were awarded a year and a half ago. All those funds need to be expended, so it's $267,000 needs to be expended by the end of this year. We're sitting in a room which is now heated and cooled thanks to those funds, so that's that heat pump over there is
We were just
part
admiring
of
that.
that. Were you? Okay.
Yes, before you got
Yeah, great, excellent.
It's really toasty over here.
And it's gonna work fine, and it's gonna work down to minus 22. So even if it gets cold this
So
weekend,
even this weekend.
it should be just fine. Yeah. So so that's the much of the work here at the town hall has been completed, except for some accessibility work that's going to be done. An automatic door opener on the back here, which I think will benefit all kinds of folks. But it's at the top of the ramp. It would be great to have that done. And some other minor work there. The food shelf will be getting heat pump soon, in the beginning of February, and Bill Luke was then sort of overseeing these two projects. And then further behind, maybe causal, I've been project managing two other projects, which is the firehouse and the library. And the firehouse has a walkthrough tomorrow with a bunch of contractors that are interested in doing the work there, where they will be able to see the scope of the project and then be able to submit bids. And we'll make a decision, I think it's February 20th, on who that will be awarded to do some or all of that project. And the library is being handled more one-off, but we will be getting people actually walking through there tomorrow as well to take a look at the library heat pump project. So that's the update from the Energy Committee.
Awesome. That's amazing and so productive. Thank you so much for spearheading all that.
Absolutely.
Of the 200 and whatever thousand, how much is left to be spent down this year?
We spent about 20% of it so far. So some of that is because there's outstanding invoices that we haven't,
Yeah?
we have not received yet and paid, but the bulk of it is yet to go.
And will we have stuff
In fact, I just
expense
did a
on
quarterly
that?
report today to the state, so this is why it's top of mind for me. Otherwise, I would have said, I don't really know. Yeah,
Oh, that's
so,
awesome. That's
yeah.
really incredible, Brian.
Yeah, we're at about $50,000 in expenditures. So,
Thank you.
so, yeah.
Cool. Great. I'm glad you came.
Great.
All right, so let's continue the number 5. So we're talking about these maps, the land use planning maps. Jason, I think most people in the room and online know the background of this, but could you give us just a quickie, high-level summary of what the issue is, what the point is?
Sure. So Act 181, about a year plus ago, laid out Act 250 amendments or changes, pretty significant changes to Act 250. Part of that was telling regional planning commissions that we must all update our regional plans, and we need to be consistent in our future land use mapping. The future land use maps, all statewide, have the same categories. We all have to use the same categories, whether we like them or not. statute spells out more or less what they mean. We have guidelines in terms of how to map them, but we're able to kind of tweak some things. So like thanks to your comments in past meetings, we really revisited the rural categories, and I think they're better. They're still not maybe what I'd want to have them look like, but they're much better than they were. The way we map your designated village center, we tweaked it on the latest version so that it is consistent with what's behind me, the way that the state has approved your current village center for Felchville. But we're going to basically, you're going to have automatic designation through our future land use map. So we just want to make sure we get it right. And because you don't have water and sewer, you sort of fall out of this tier 1 type category for the Act 250 exemptions. But that's another part of these regional plans they're mapping out, where essentially Act 250 would be exempt in the bigger, if you will, village centers, surrounding area. So if we're submitting these in February for preliminary review by the State Land Use Review Board, I'm sure they're going to tell us to make changes. We're going to be making some changes, so there'll be another crack at this thing over the next few months, I think. You know, if you're not happy with it, or we discover something else wrong, so I think we'll have another crack at it before it becomes final at some point in the summer. That's sort of the nutshell version of it. I think the only real change from the last version of the map to the new version of the map is a new and improved village center boundary. I think that should be consistent with what the state has approved previously. You know, I was talking earlier about maybe if there's a water or sewer project, maybe we'd want a larger village center in Felchville that might help with some financing. You know, we could consider that now, but we also can change our map. That we can have an amendment 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So if we have a better sense at that point of what the new boundary should be, you know, we're more than happy and able to do it. It takes a little bit of a process, but we're happy to explore that when the time is right.
I have a question about that. Is it easier to try to do that now, kind of while all this change is happening, rather than 3 years under the microscope? Could we sort of sweep it in now and be prospective about it, or
We could.
do we really want to wait?
We could. You know, we're getting to the end of February when we're submitting it, but yeah, there's still time. We could do it. You know, I don't imagine, you know, I was talking with Jack about maybe some modest expansions, so that might not be a big deal. And being consistent with the wastewater feasibility study, I think would hold water, so to speak. So I think that would be doable if that's something that we want to do.
I mean, my understanding from past meetings that there's really no downside to village center designation. Like it doesn't increase your taxes, it doesn't put you in any higher liability or jeopardy or anything.
Right, what it really does is it would, in this scenario, if we expand it, it would make a few more properties eligible for tax credits. So if somebody's doing a facade improvements, or they're doing code improvements, or whatever it is, and if it's for an eligible use, generally a business or an apartment money-making project, they would have access to some funds that would help pay for the project.
So when you say it like that, my response is make it as big as is credible.
Okay, yeah, and you know, the only thing, so we can do that. The state is going to be reviewing it, and they've been historically more stingy in what should get designated, but I think with the wastewater feasibility study as the backdrop, I think we could make a strong case for it. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I think what we were talking about was really just, and I'm just going to point to this map because it's easier. The village center designation ends here right now, and maybe it's essentially expanding it up to here. If we did something like that, I think we'd be Does that sound
Yeah.
reasonable?
I think that makes sense. I mean,
Okay.
right now it starts at the corner of Tyson Road, which is sort of the old general store building. In fact, does it even
It doesn't
include?
include the gym.
Doesn't even include the old general store building, does it?
And a lot of those
We're
buildings.
talking about out here?
Yeah, right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it should.
Across the street?
Yeah, that should,
Oh, yeah, that and the next property over.
so just
Okay,
barely,
yeah.
you know, just
Just a little bit lower. Right, but
That
there,
one.
there are like 4 or 5 properties north of that boundary line that conceivably would fall into a wastewater system.
And I think we talked about maybe going up to that property right
Right.
there.
Yeah.
So we could, you know, that,
I mean, there's no downside.
we can do it. We
You
can do
can
it.
ask, it doesn't.
We can ask.
right?
What's that?
It doesn't hurt to ask.
It does not hurt to ask, and one thing that would be helpful is when we're before the state land use review board is to have somebody there from Reading or a letter or something like, yay, this, we really support this. That would help.
And I think that geographically and historically, those couple houses are consistently, conceived as part of the village. It's just a couple feet away.
Yes, okay, we'll do that.
What about Hammondsville? Can we ask for that too? I mean, there are 2 active businesses there,
You
one
can
of which is in an historic building. It's also the only mining designation in town, I think. Stacy, you know more about that than I do.
Yes.
Stacy, what do you think about Hammondsville? That's an area that you know a little bit more about.
I think it's a very viable option. If we could add that, that would be great.
I think that's gonna be an uphill battle. So the definition in state law for a village center is the core traditional settlement, typically comprised of a cohesive mix of residential, civic, religious, commercial, mixed-use buildings. They're really looking for a bigger place than Hammondsville is.
So we need to start a church there, is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying no, but I'm thinking the state will probably say no. I don't think it's gonna pass muster, but we can ask.
Ask.
I think we should ask.
We
I mean,
can-
it's
we can
got,
ask.
it's got a very active logging business there. It used to have the real estate across the street, which is now, I think, a short-term rental. It's got the cafe, which is, if that cafe ever changed hands and someone wanted to make changes and upgrades to that historic building, it would be really helpful to have some kind of additional financing options available.
That's probably the one property that would likely benefit from the designation. If there were a few of them like that, I think we'd have a better shot, but again, we can ask. And same with South Reading, I think we can ask. That one makes a little more sense, I think, than Hammondsville, but it doesn't quite float to, I think, what the state would like.
Let's ask.
But again, we can ask.
If it encourages and enables businesses to flourish in these already little developed hamlets, that could be a good thing, as long as you're saying there's no downside, which it seems like there's no downside.
There really is no downside. The issue's gonna be getting the state to say, yep, that works.
We do have a church in South Reading.
I know that. So that helps. That helps. There's a little more of a cluster of stuff going on.
There
So
is.
that is a little more
I'm sure there are
helpful.
some home-based businesses in there. I don't know that anyone is running one, but it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing. If you make it possible for someone to do it, maybe it'll happen.
Yeah, I'm not, maybe the church building, but I don't know that there would be any buildings
Food pantry.
that would presently benefit from it, from the tax credits, but that could change.
Food pantry?
That could change over.
Like if they needed to repoint the food pantry?
Possibly. So we'll ask. I don't expect a yes, but we'll ask.
Ask vigorously, and let's see what they say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we want to look at these?
Jason, can I ask a question?
Yes, of
Real quick,
course.
Jason, you mentioned after this first stage that there would be some obvious comments from the state.
Yep.
What do you anticipate those comments be?
I'm expecting them to think that our in some of our other towns like Chester, maybe not so much Chester, but Springfield, Windsor, I'm expecting them to think that our village areas and our planned growth areas are too big.
Our village areas and which ones?
And plant.
I'm expecting, so, you know, Ludlow, Windsor, Springfield, Chester are all gonna have these, either a planned growth area or a village area, depending on the size, surrounding their village centers. I'm expecting them to ask us to scale those back.
What about Reading? Anything in Reading?
No, I would like to give you one of these things, but because of the lack of water and sewer, it's sort of making that impossible.
Okay.
So I don't expect pushback in Reading, only if we're asking for some potential new village centers, so we'll explore that.
Well, let's give them
They'll
something to talk
ask
about.
questions probably on the expansion, but I think we've got a pretty good reason why.
Yeah.
Would it help to add that there is a feasibility study and a committee actively working so that you can mention that there's potential for the wastewater system?
Yeah, I think that will be music to their ears, actually, so yes, we will mention that. That's gonna be our justification.
Right.
Yeah.
Does it make more sense to look? Do you look or you have?
I don't know which one is that. I have.
To look at the maps or to go over these categories first?
I'm more than happy to go over anything. I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but maybe not everybody's been here.
Oh, I didn't touch the wire, I swear.
No, I
That
think
was
it's,
before you started walking around.
looks like our internet dropped out.
Oh, I wonder if,
The storm.
We'll see if we can get it back. It looks like it's trying to reconnect.
I'm just gonna text Stacy really quick.
Oh, there is a Wi-Fi now.
Do you have Stacy's mobile?
I don't.
I thought I did, but I'm not finding it. People in the room, if you could look at these categories and think really critically about how it affects your property and properties that you know of and whether it makes sense, that would be great.
You know, I'll go down through the list if that's helpful. You don't have a downtown center, that's Windsor and Springfield. But you do have the village center, that right now that's in Felchville. You do not have a planned growth area at this point. You do not have a village area at this point. And that's again because of there's no water sewer.
Recording in progress.
Sorry.
Are they back?
Yeah.
So I'm looking on page 2 of the category descriptions. You don't have transition area. That's usually more of like a reverse road type situation, like in Springfield, where there's sort of, you know, businesses and along a corridor like that.
Let me just tell Stacy what we're doing. Stacy, we're looking at the categories that Mark has revised.
And I was just walking through them, Stacy. I'm on page 2. On page 1, basically, village center pertains to Reading. None of the other ones do. On page 2, we're looking at transition area. You don't have enterprise. You don't presently have. That's really industrial parks. You don't have that.
So, sorry, can we go back to the village center?
Yes.
I know the state has a bigger definition that includes those churches, for example, but
Yep.
here, under your definition, smaller mixed-use centers bringing together community, economic activity, and civic assets with housing. Infrastructure is present or desired to support compact settlement patterns.
Yep.
So I think that kind of describes South Reading at least.
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So
You're gonna ask, all right, moving on.
we will ask. Yep.
So we have no transition areas, no enterprise areas,
Correct. And
resource-based recreation?
you don't have those either. So that's essentially the former Mount Scottney Resort Area, the Lakes District in Ludlow, and Okemo. That's essentially where those are.
Hamlet.
Hamlet, for some reason that dropped off the map. We currently we should show Hammondsville and South Reading is hamlets.
So the December map had those on.
Yeah, I don't know. Whoops, that's a mistake.
Can you put 'em back?
Those are the hamlets, but we are exploring, we're asking the question whether they could be village centers.
Okay. When you finally finalize Reading's map, if you want a second, third, and fourth pair of eyes, we would love to look at it just to
Yeah,
make sure.
we need that.
I'd be happy to proofread the maps.
No, thank you. We'll take you up on that for sure.
Will
Rural.
you see these maps before you submit them to the state?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought a print tonight, and I'm more than happy, Stacy, we can email that to you. And but we're gonna have probably some other changes, so maybe hold tight. Maybe I'll send you a new version in the near future.
But it doesn't have the hamlets. And it doesn't, so we got one from you, and it didn't have roads, but then we got an update from Kellen that had roads, but not all the roads, and then the new one has no roads again. So it would be great to like.
Yeah, I hear that.
And then the new one has a nice version of the floodplain, but it doesn't have some other stuff. So
Yeah.
the more overlays you can give us
Yep.
to get us one map that is functional for kind of the most planning needs would be great.
I hear that. Yep. There is an online version of it too, and we'll make sure that you have that link. You can kind of zoom in and out and play with things. But
Okay.
very, very good points. So going back to the list of the categories, so mostly you're rural. So rural general is essentially everything else, if you will, after the following two rural categories. Generally speaking, rural general is probably where you have a little bit more of a cluster of houses and that sort of a thing.
So on the maps, that's the yellow, right?
That's the yellow one.
Going back to the hamlet, is there any tangible benefit to being designated a hamlet?
Not really. It just recognizes that there's a cluster of buildings in a particular area. I think the real difference is it a hamlet where basically it's status quo, or do we want it to be more of a thing like a village center? That's the real distinction.
Okay.
Next, we have this rural agricultural and forestry category. That's been a lot of our conversation over the last couple of months. Essentially, this is where there's blocks of certain size, large forest blocks or farmland present. And there's certain, like they're looking at 20 acres or more, certain things like that play into how it was mapped. But Kellen spent a lot of time going through it, making it, initially there were all these weird little islands, and I think we got it a lot better. It's a lot, I hope, better looking, and it makes a little more sense. Rural conservation is more areas that have some pretty significant environmental traits. So it could be wetlands, steep slopes, any number of those sorts of things, high elevations. From a policy point of view, there's not a huge distinction between those two rural categories. They're really very similar. It allows development, but the idea is to try to protect the functionality of those resources. So whether it's a forest block or a farmland or a wetland or whatever, it's trying to, you can do development, but just don't mess up that natural resource. That's really the intent of those categories.
So take rural ag and forestry and conservation. In the ag and forestry, it says development should be carefully managed to promote working landscape and rural economy while protecting agricultural and forest resource value. And then rural conservation, it says development is allowed but must minimize impacts and maintain functionality of identified significant natural resources.
Right.
It's kind of hard for me to get my head around that. Because
So
I hear you that they're not that different, but they kind of sound different.
They're different in the sense that rural agricultural and forestry is more geared towards like a working landscape, so farms, forestry. So I guess there's more of a do more rural economy activities here idea. But in terms of a policy, somebody's complaining, somebody's sort of saying, hey, listen, farming really isn't a thing anymore in my town. And I was hearing this from West Windsor, and he was right. But we're trying to preserve the potential for future farming. That's what state law wants us to do. But you can still do a development there. It's just sort of, hey, try to minimize your impact on those resources, the forest soil or the ag soil or the farm. So we build to the periphery, those sorts of things. It's sort of the idea. And that's really the same concept with rural conservation, except that we're not expecting necessarily working landscape activity. It's more of a natural condition, and we're trying to protect steep slopes and wetlands and those sorts of things from harm when there's development. Most projects are not going to go through Act 250. We probably should talk about the 1 acre thing later, but most developments are going to go through the ZBA and not Act 250 probably, and so they're going to go to your zoning, and this won't really play a major role. If you're going through Act 250, they will look at the town plan and the regional plan, and they may look at these issues. They already look at these issues because A&R looks at all of this stuff anyway as part of an Act 250. So I don't think it's a hugely impactful new thing.
So in the prior maps, there was a lot more conservation land without kind of an articulable reason behind it. And I think we've gotten to a place where anything marked as dark green is actually conservation land, is either in a conservation easement in the case of some of them, or is the state forestry land. I don't know what some of the other parcels are. But that makes sense because there were some people's homes that were designated conservation, especially up around Stone Chimney. So that seems to make sense. We have a lot of blue in Reading, and that's the rural ag and forest, which makes sense, I guess, because before it was kind of chip-chopped here and there without any real reason of why this parcel versus that parcel. If I take, any one parcel that's in the rural ag and forest that's big, here's a big one. Say this owner wants to create housing and subdivide into, it's a, R10 probably here, they want to subdivide into 10-acre lots and build 10 houses. Is that possible on that kind of property with that designation?
In theory, it's possible. Yep. Again, if they're going to go, if they have to go through Act 250, they might look at the forest soils, and 10-acre chunks is not going to be forestry activity anymore, right? So there's going to be some conversations about that. But if it doesn't go through Act 250, no. And to be honest, there's nothing in our policy language that would say, no, you can't do that. It's just more, how are you going to protect the resource?
Yeah.
So probably it's okay. But if it gets into Act 250, that has a life of its own, so I don't really know.
I mean, should we be asking for the whole town to be rural general to give people more options, or is this appropriate?
I personally think it's appropriate, and I think, state law is telling us we should be doing this, and frankly, there's a lot of forest that could be logged and ready. So I think it makes some sense, but I don't think it precludes a development. But there's going to be a review of that, and they are going to look at, if it gets to Act 250, they're going to be looking at the forest block aspect of it.
Thoughts?
Well, I think, to your point, that we haven't included the deer wintering or wildlife corridors in those maps. And they take up a lot of the dark green area.
That would be really helpful if
We
those...
looked at that too, but we're not showing it, so.
Yeah. If you could pop those on, that would be great, because that would really help us better understand it. And like this one with the floodplain is also really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this one had the floodplain. And then the new one's kind of hard to see for me, because it's small. Well, actually, this is the newest one. This is the not quite so new one.
Are there any other questions, or concerns, or changes that anybody wants to raise?
You had noted on the agenda whether Reading would be a 1 acre versus 10 acre town.
I know, you just said we should talk about that later. Can we talk about it now?
Yeah.
Can you give us a little background and describe it? What's the difference? And why is Reading, what are we? We're the 1 acre.
We're the 1 acre.
But I feel like we shouldn't be. But we may be asked to be.
Should not be.
So describe what,
Well, so there's, Act 250 has jurisdiction, it's different jurisdiction in different towns. So if you're a town that has zoning and subdivision, generally speaking, you're a 10-acre town. So essentially, Act 250 jurisdiction kicks in when you're on a 10-acre or larger type parcel development. For towns that don't have both zoning and subdivision, generally you're a 1 acre town. And again, so Act 250 kicks in a lot more cases. So 1 acre or above. And so at one point, Reading had what I think of as subdivision light, kind of thing. It wasn't really a robust subdivision regulation. And so it didn't really fall into the 10-acre category. It was still one that changed over time. And as I understand it, the town wrote a letter and asked to remain a 1 acre town.
when you say the town, was that the select board or the planning commission?
I don't know. I would hope that it would have come through the select board, but I don't know. I wasn't involved with that, but that's what I've been told over the years. You're still listed right now as a 1 acre town. It's something to talk about. I mean, your zoning has subdivision in it. I think you could, in theory, be a 10-acre town.
Do we know when that request was made? Like roughly what year?
I don't, to be totally honest with you. I want to say it's been years. 15 years, I don't even know.
Early 2000s maybe?
Probably somewhere in that ballpark. I really don't know. But I think it's something we could ask. So Stephanie Giles, the district coordinator for this area, we could ask, hey Stephanie, what does Reading need to do if they want to change it? And we can go from there. But the effect of that would be, Act 250 is going to come to town less frequently. It would only pertain to 10 acres or more type of a development instead of a 1. Stephen Strait or others might remember more about why and all this, but I don't.
So we just, as you well know, with Martha's assistance and Mark's assistance, undertook a huge revision of the subdivision rules for Reading in the last year, and that's now been implemented. I think we have a pretty robust framework for subdivisions.
Yep.
I just want to make sure we're doing what is appropriate for Reading. So everybody loves Reading as a rural place, but I don't know that anybody wants to ask for additional regulation that's not required. It seems a little, it seems unusual to be asking the state to please come to town and do Act 250 review on every project over an acre, even though it's not required.
Yeah, again, I can't really speak to that. I know some towns feel like Act 250 is maybe a little more of a robust review process with professionals in their field reviewing certain impacts on resources and what have you. Maybe that's a reason why some towns do it, but I think this is a good question for Reading. Maybe it doesn't make sense anymore.
So is it in your kind of area to ask and see if we could change that if we wanted to?
If that's something you want me to ask of Stephanie, yeah, I'm happy to ask how you, it's probably as simple as, look, we got zoning and subdivision, we want out. But they probably want something from the select board,
From the town.
yes, but I can ask her if that's what you would like.
Any thoughts in the room on this? I mean, I sort of feel like, why would we invite more regulation that's not necessary, but maybe that's just me.
No, I agree.
I agree. I agree.
We're asking the state to come in and do an extra overlay on top of our already fairly revised and current bylaws that now conform to state law seems to be extra.
I could see a reason why in the past, if we didn't have a robust system, it would have been advantageous, or towns that don't have a robust planning.
Well, like Cavendish doesn't have zoning?
They don't have zoning, they don't have subdivision, and so they're a 1 acre town whether they like it or not, frankly.
So that makes sense, because there's,
I think Reading actually has a choice, so you can.
yeah.
So it sounds like the majority is saying, yeah, let's figure out.
I think let's ask the
How
question.
we would make this change, and I'll let you know what I find out.
I don't think we're asking yet, and I think that would be a request that we would suggest to the select board, and I think that's up to them to make the decision. But let's,
And what the process looks like.
yeah, what the process looks like and the likelihood, and if it's just a question of deciding, then I think the planning commission should probably, with the input of whoever shows up, make a recommendation to the select board if we want to change it. If we don't want to change it, we don't have to talk to them about it at all. But if we want to change it, make a recommendation and ask them to make a request to whom? To Mark?
No,
Or the
I
state?
think you would ask, whether you send it to Stephanie or her boss, I'm not sure, but yeah, we can ask sort of procedurally how that would work, because I don't know.
Okay. I'm gonna write down, Jason will ask Stephanie.
And I'll keep you in the loop on that ask. So
Okay.
you can see what she responds.
Yeah, I don't know how many times Action 50's been out to Reading in recent years.
Well, the most
But
recent,
maybe they would welcome the reduced workload.
they were gonna dig into those Reading cliffs, but it turned out to be in the deer wintering area, so that didn't work out. Okay. All right. Other things on this? So you will get us kind of the most updated state-of-the-art map before it goes to the state and give us maybe a week or two to look at it and look for any gaps
Yep.
or make any
And,
requests?
Yeah, we can do that. So we're gonna look at expanding Felchville, and then we can add the appropriate labels and other features on the map. Do you want a paper map? Do you prefer to see that online map? It's interactive, or both, or what's your preference?
I mean, if it's not greedy, I would love both.
Yeah.
I mostly work on my laptop and I don't get a lot of real estate on there.
Yep.
And there's something about having the big map and laying them all across the table and comparing them all, which is really helpful.
Yep.
But if they're really expensive or it's a huge hassle, then we can make do.
Not too bad.
And we have another meeting in 2 weeks. So
That's
if we
true,
could
yeah.
get it before then, we could
Hopefully, yeah.
discuss it then.
I think, yeah, one issue that could take a little more time are the other potential new village centers, but hopefully we can get some answers at least, if nothing else. Before
Okay.
that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, if we do, because of the change of schedule, we do have another meeting hopefully on February 4th. So that for this process might work really well. And we can get, if you could bring kind of the newest state-of-the-art map with as many helpful little overlays as you can, that would be great.
Okay.
Jason, what's your submission date in February?
It's a little loose. I'm gonna say the way things are going, the last week or so of February.
Last week or so.
Roughly.
Okay,
Okay.
so we got time. Actually, then maybe this schedule for this month is really helpful. I want to thank you too, Jason, for coming to these last few meetings, for providing us with all this information and these information primers and being so easy to work with. It's really helpful to have such a good working relationship.
Well, it's important to me to have that relationship with you, and it's important that you know the implications of the map and you have input into the map. So, and actually, you've been asking some really good questions, so thank you. I think we have a better regional map because of your questions. So
Go Reading.
it's
Yeah.
good.
All right.
Go Reading. Yeah.
Good.
Just a comment before we let Jason go. I think another very helpful thing for us to review through this legislation process is VLCT gives us weekly updates, and you can really review actively what is going on. They did have some, it was not necessarily, because we're tier 3, right, Jason?
You're, at this point, you're all tier 2, which is Act 250 status quo. Tier 3, and we can talk about that if you want, is in a rulemaking process. It doesn't exist yet, but it will impact part of Reading at some point in the future.
Actually, let's touch on tier 3, because we have you here, and we have this new tier 3 map. Thank goodness we're not all tier 3, Stacy, or we would be Brigadoon, I think. So there is, Jason did bring a draft tier 3 rulemaking map. I think it's also online, because I found it online. I can't remember where. Is there a place where you can point Stacy to really quickly for him to look up?
I thought I sent you the link. But
It's like the land board, or?
Yeah, if you searched Vermont LURB tier 3, it'll come up.
Okay. So I don't know if you can find that, Stacy.
There's a map, but I will say, so in the room here, we're looking at basically a zoomed in printout of that map that Land Use Review Board created. That's their second version. It changed significantly from the first version, and I'm expecting a third version at some point soon. I think it's probably going to change, but the bottom line is it's really not a lot of town here in Reading. It's their current idea is to essentially have this heightened Act 250 review in headwater stream areas, and these habitat connectors is what they're calling them. So essentially, it's like wildlife travel corridors. And so you can see on this map, if you have it in front of you, where those are, and it's fairly limited.
I'm happy it's not my house.
It's fairly limited, and what they're currently saying.
It's my house.
What they're currently saying, which I don't personally like, is that certain things like subdivisions are exempt, but a house, building a house, one house, would have to go through Act 250. I think they have that backwards personally, but that's just me.
And is that already state law, or is that just policy?
No, this is a draft rule.
And can you give them that feedback?
I did,
Oh.
and I'm hoping that the new version 3 will maybe do something different.
So if you take a parcel, there are a couple parcels that I'm more familiar with, that has tiny little snippets of tier 3 on it. You know, you have 100 acres, and there's probably, you know, a couple ravines or maybe a ridge or some stream bank in a fraction of the parcel, but the overall 100 acres or 200 acres or 50 acres is unaffected. How will those small snippets affect the full parcel?
You know, it shouldn't affect most of the rest of the parcel. They're basically saying, if you got one of these colors on your property and you're doing a development, you should ideally get a jurisdictional opinion, and they'll determine whether you're in or out of, in this case, maybe a headwater stream area.
So if you avoid the dark green area
If you avoid it, you
with
won't
your
have,
new house,
you won't have to go.
it doesn't affect 200 yards away?
All things being equal, if you would not ordinarily have to go through Act 250, and if you avoid that dark green blob with your development, you should be able to avoid Act 250.
And is this something that people in town should be looking at, concerned with? Is there any pushback or appeal room? Or like if I don't know what these properties are, there's a big chunk of dark green up 106 north of the Jenny Road to the west. Like if that's my property, it's not. If it were, should that person care about this? Should they know about this? Is this gonna change how they use and manage their property down the road, or not really?
You know, in general, I'd say, yeah, people should be paying attention to this thing.
Right.
It does impact people. So yeah, I would say pay attention, and I think from a policy point of view, let's make sure, you know, we provide them with comments, so hopefully the policy's better, you know. And that's where I'm coming from. Like, I think it's really bad to have a singular house fall into Act 250. I think And that's
Yeah.
sort of contrary to our housing crisis problem, but
Well, that's
just
what
me.
I'm thinking about, yeah. I mean, they're making it really hard to build a house.
Could you define exactly what a headwater stream area is?
Probably not, but,
Because I'm looking at places here where it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but
Are you looking
I
up
don't know
stone
exactly
chimney?
what the definition is.
it's a good question. Maybe this has an answer, hold on. It does, so I'm looking at the draft rules, which you don't have in front of you. Headwater stream area means areas with high sensitivity to stormwater runoff that satisfy all of the following criteria. And there's quite a few of them. Within a drainage area of a first, second, or third order stream. Some other detail, has or is proximate to extremely steep slopes of 35% or greater, has soils with little ability to infiltrate water, is at or above 1,200 feet in elevation, but lower than 2,500 feet.
Good grief.
Blah, blah, blah. But that's basically it.
So that big clay line ravine that I'm
Are you clear
aware of.
now?
That really clarifies that.
There's mud.
Huh. Well, it's kind of hard to push back against that, isn't it?
I will say, you know, if they created the rules the way legislation was initially thinking about it, this issue would have been a lot more land area in town. So
Wait, say that again, it would be a lot more what?
the map would be a lot more expansive. There would be a lot more properties, you know, affected.
In the tier 3?
They scaled tier 3 back a lot in this second version, just,
So the
So, yeah.
legislature was looking for more restriction?
I would say so. So part of this is thinking, okay, well, Act 250 has a road rule, they've got jurisdiction on these other things, they look at these other natural resources through a normal course of business, so let's just focus on only these other things. So, you know, you should ask your questions, but this is a lot less impactful than the first draft.
Good to know. Question, is it possible to overlay these tiers onto the next great map? Because if we had these tiers, if we could come up with one big map that showed the significant wildlife overlay district, and the deer overwintering area, and the floodplain, and the proposed tiers, and stick it up on the wall and put up an announcement in Front Porch Forum saying, everybody should go down and check out the new draft map.
I'm not
That would be
sure.
awesome.
I'm not sure if this is available to us. I'll check.
Okay.
Ellen can check. Not sure. If it's available, yes. I mean, at some point you put so many things on a map, it gets really messy. But yes, in theory, yes.
Okay.
If it's available to us, yes.
I did find it online and it's pretty interactive. If you
It is.
click off the headwater stream areas and then all that aqua blue goes away. And then you can click on and off the other habitats and those will disappear or come back on depending on what you do to engage.
Do you think it's worth
And it
sending
would be,
the link around?
maybe sending the link around would be important. Just personally speaking, on my parcel, the larger parcel, there are two of the headwater stream areas, small little blobs on the upper part. And I would be very interested to find out how they impact the larger parcel.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it sounds like, I think I'm asking the same thing. It sounds like not so much the larger parcel, just don't build in that ravine or just don't build in that area. Is that true?
I think so, but again, this is an ongoing rulemaking process that's probably going to change. So I would say stay tuned and stay engaged and
Because
keep asking questions. I think it's
if the answer is if you get one tier 3 blob on your property, you can't develop it, that would be
No,
a
it's
sad
not,
thing.
it doesn't mean that anyway, regardless, you know,
Yeah.
it just means you might have to go through Act 250. But I think if you can do your development on another part of that parcel outside of the blob, I think probably you don't. But there is a process where probably a jurisdictional opinion would be the thing that determines, yes, you can avoid it, or you gotta get an Act 250 permit.
Or a 1 acre town.
Well, through the Act 250 process, having gone through it with that 104 Bailey's Mills property we have, you go through a list of specialists asking them to come out and review with you and your engineers where the habitats are outlined, and then if they see fit, they'll ask you to offset the property building site to consider deer, wildlife, or vernal ponds. And then you go through that process, getting their approval, getting your site plan approved, and then they sign off on it.
Stacy, do you have a sense of, I have not gone through this process. Do you have a sense of how much time that adds on, or dollar cost that adds on to have that review?
It's pretty expensive. I mean, we're talking probably upwards of 10 grand, and engineering fees. And then the process is just really depending on the Act 250's workload and getting everyone aligned to go through the process. I think it took us about 2 years to get
Okay.
to the point where we were signed off and we could move forward with construction.
That's sobering.
I have a question. So the habitat connectors, I mean, they're a much smaller portion of what's affecting Reading, but my property falls completely within those. So does that mean if I wanted to, I don't know, demolish a house and build a new one, or subdivide and build a new house, because I'm completely in it, does that mean that I would?
Is that south of the red hatching area?
I am the next property outside of the red hatching area. So I mean, I feel like there's an argument for extending the town center, but I think you were saying that that can't be done because of the space between the art foundation and then the residential buildings on the other side of it create a gap significant enough that wouldn't fly for continuing the town center down in that direction. But yeah, it pushes me out. It excludes me because I have their field in between me and the town center.
One thing I'm not sure about was whether they were going to go with this 800-foot version of the habitat connector or the 2,000-foot version. So that's unclear to me, and I'm not sure which one you're in.
I'm in the 2,000.
So let's say they go with 2,000. Let's say this is the version that they go with, ultimately. If your property is totally within the green blob there, if you do a project, you probably do have to go through Act 250. And probably, certain projects are a lot, I think, quicker and hopefully cheaper than Stacy's experience. Some are more involved and more expensive and even take longer. So hopefully you wouldn't have that experience.
I mean, I certainly don't know that I would be endeavoring on something that a $10,000 price tag tacked on top of it would be worthwhile.
Right.
So is there any process for, say, an individual homeowner to give that feedback to the state?
I think the comment period is technically ended, but I think you can certainly comment. We can follow up with that link, and if you want to send a comment in, certainly that's certainly fine. And maybe the question is initially just how would this impact me as a property owner? But anyway, yeah, I think it's worth asking the question.
I assume there's no compensation if someone gets thrown into a tier 3 or a habitat connector, right? It's not considered a taking.
So if I remove the 2,000 feet, say they only approve the 800 feet, then, I was incorrect. My property is a very strange shape, and the protruding area where currently there are structures is in the excluded hatch mark area.
Okay.
But if I wanted to develop the undeveloped portion of my
Yeah.
property, it is not in the excluded area.
You know, there's certain things that are exempt in their draft ideas, so if you were doing an accessory dwelling out back,
Right.
probably not gonna be an issue. But if you wanna do a, I don't know, 6-unit apartment building, yeah, this would suggest you've gotta go through Act 250.
What if you want to subdivide so your kids can build a house on their portion?
At this point, subdivision is exempt, so in this draft, you're okay, but that may change, who knows?
But since we're a 1 acre town, we would have to go through Act 250 until unless we get it redesignated as a 10 acre town.
Yep.
Right, but I think in the proposed tier 3, it's something of a different story. I mean, if you're in tier 3 and you're not exempt, you gotta go through Act 250, whether you're 1 acre,
No matter what.
10 acre, I think. But
That makes
again,
sense.
these rules are in flux, so.
If you have thoughts on this, you should probably reach out to them and give them a real world example of what it looks like. I mean,
It's hard to have thoughts because so much is in flux and so much is very amorphous, so.
Yeah.
But I will.
But it's one thing when it's academic and you're looking at it and thinking, oh, sure, this looks good. And it's another thing when you realize that you've just put somebody's home into.
But yeah, exactly, if I wanted to
Protected area.
subdivide, which I'm perfectly capable of doing with our zoning, I'm in the right, for my kids to build a house on the other side of the property,
Or a multifamily.
it would be interesting.
Okay.
I don't
And
know.
now's the time to make these comments
Yeah.
versus waiting until it's too late.
Yep.
And you might influence.
And we all have to understand that this is an ever-evolving situation. If you're keeping track of these DLCT updates, and there's a lot at play,
Yeah.
and it's constantly changing.
Yep. All right. Anything else on the map making for Jason? Can I put in a plug to, once you guys are done with this and you've submitted your stuff to the state, to revisit the Class 4 road mapping project with us?
Yeah, and other than just Otis's schedule, there's no reason we couldn't start sooner, but yes. I think
Okay, well, I don't want to
One way or
overburden
the
you.
other. He's less involved with this, so,
Okay.
we can have that conversation.
That would be great. I think what we talked about in the past is trying to come up with a comprehensive, accurate road categorization map. So which ones are the class 3s, which ones are the class 4s. I know Bob Allen said something about there being only one trail, but there's still a lot of urban legend out there about what roads
Okay.
are. And
So to just start with a map maybe, and then a list of roads that clarifies what's what? Is
Yeah.
that a
I
good
mean,
starting point?
if you have a good map that shows as many roads as possible that we can start looking at and say, that seems right or that's not right, that would be great.
Okay,
Love
That's
these
doable.
maps.
that's doable.
Thanks, Jason. Anything else for Jason?
So we're going to get the link for that interactive map, and then also in that same blast, we're going to include a way of contacting someone to give comments.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Thank you, Jason.
I think next time we send it out in the Front Porch Forum, I have to remember to do this for the next meeting. We should send out a link to the map you're looking at right now, Stacy, for these draft Tier 3 rulemakings, and see if anyone has any interest in poking around in there and looking at their properties. If they don't, then we've done all we can do. Okay. Thank you so much, Jason. We really appreciate it.
Yep, sure.
You're welcome to stay, but you're also free to leave and get out there in the squall.
Yep.
Jason, I have a separate, do you have anything to do with Mark's priority project list?
Yes. Yes.
So do we want to hear about that?
The RCP wants to get on it.
Which, I'm sorry.
The Reading Community Trust
Okay.
wants to get on that list.
Okay. So, the short version is Springfield Regional Development Corporation is really the one who comes up with this list of 10 economic development projects. So we call it the Regional Project Priority List. So every year around December, we create the list, and then there's a chance around May to amend the list. And so we're probably talking about the May timeframe, but essentially we have a role with Bob to kind of help inform that list. But that's good to know. We'll I'll let him know that there's interest there.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I think unless there's anything else, we're ready to move off the mark mapping discussion. Everybody good? Okay. The next item on the agenda is sort of what we already segued into, this class 4 roads issue. That has taken a little bit back burner to this mark mapping conversation, but it's a little bit similar in how the roads are being used and where they're going and how they're designated. I think our feedback has dribbled out. Anyone is welcome to give us feedback ongoing. We got feedback from GMHA, we got feedback from the Reading Rats, the all-terrain people. We got feedback. Tracy, you got feedback from somebody. Stacy, sorry, you got feedback from somebody. I can't. Yeah. So I think we've gotten the feedback we're going to do. I think the next phase of that is to look at the roadmaps and start to categorize them properly with the goal of having a current and updated and usable map that shows the class 4s, and then to think about if there are any implications of the current road ordinance that should be updated, or if it can stay the same. I think that's where we're at that. Any comments? Thoughts? All right, are we done with that topic? Okay. Planning for our next meeting. Wednesday, February 4th.
More maps.
Everybody good with that date?
Mm-hmm.
Am I good with that date? Hold on. Wednesday.
I'm good with it.
I am good with it too. Shanann? Yes. Good. James? Yes. Okay. So we will have a very speedy turnaround. I'm going to have to get the agenda off to the town clerk ASAP. And it will be actually great to have this all fresh in our minds and continue on this mapping discussion. So thank you. I hope we're not taking too much of your time.
It's all good.
Okay. I'm going to just stipulate there are lots of thank yous in there. Other business? Sir.
Yeah, excuse me. I was unable to make the November meeting, so when I looked at the minutes, something kind of jumped out at me, and that was under other business. You stated that someone inquired whether 419 Bailey's Mill Road could be a venue for weddings. Well, that address kind of got my attention for obvious reasons. So I didn't think too much of it until the property was sold. And then when the property was sold, see that the buyer is an LLC. So again, that kind of got my attention, the fact that it's an LLC. So I looked into the LLC and found that it was only created on November 13th of 2025, just a few weeks after the inquiry. So again, a little bit concerning. So I would just, I understand that there's nothing going on that we know about, but in the event that there is, I would just like to be assured that this time we get ahead of it and we immediately put a stop to it if that's going to happen. And the reason is that a venue for weddings does not fall under the definition of either of the possible conditional use businesses that could be formed. The first one being a home-based business. A home-based business is considered use in all districts. A home-based business shall be carried on by the residents of the premises and not more than 3 additional on-premises employees who are not residents. Occupy an accessory structure located on the lot or a portion of the dwelling that includes less than 40% of the total living space. So it has to be occupied within that. And comply with the performance standards and result in no external evidence of the enterprise except for permitted signs. Obviously, a wedding would be extremely visible. The other one would be a small business. And the definition of a small business is a use or structure dedicated to retail, communications, or light commercial or manufacturing purposes. So therefore, if there's any intent to have this as a wedding venue, I hope we can get on top of it immediately and not get into the same situation that we just got out of at that address.
So can I just explain? Bob Allen was the one that brought it to our attention. And he asked us for advice, and we advised him to have the person that you're talking about speak to the town lawyer. And we don't know anything after that.
I don't think we said to speak to the town's lawyer. I think what we said was that as the planning commission, actually as a planning commission, we're out. It's more of a zoning thing. And you're the chair, so, but I think we said that they should consult their lawyer.
Well, their lawyer then would consult.
And look at the code.
Right, yes.
Well, the owner is a lawyer.
Well, then hopefully they've
Then he can
consulted
read
the code. So,
There is a carve out for weddings, and I think it's actually under state law, but I'm not entirely sure about that. That is limited, so I think, again, I'm not reading the law right now, and I'm trying to find the section, but I don't know where it is. But there is a carve out for weddings, but it's pretty limited, so,
Wasn't
like.
it once a month?
no, it's
No,
12 per year.
12 per year. No, it's not more than 12 days, so if each one were only 1 day, you
Yeah.
could have 12, but if you had like a 2-day event, then
You have 6.
that's fewer. Yeah, you'd have 6.
So that's the other thing I would like to ask is that the next time there's an opportunity to update our new, whatever we call it.
Or zoning ordinance.
Yeah, that the section that talks about that says garage sales, yard sales, weddings or other similar, that 3-day, 12-day thing. Well, I think the 3-day, 12-day thing is fine for garage sales and,
Yeah,
but weddings,
right.
anybody that's having more than maybe 2 weddings a year in their yard, they're doing it as a business. So I'd like to take the weddings out of that 3-day, 12-day thing.
And also there's other considerations, the parking, the use of, what, Stacy, what were you gonna
The
say?
performance standards
Yeah, the performance.
that we just
Meaning-
extensively reviewed and
Meaning the
discussed.
parking and the noise and all of that, I mean, you know.
I think, Shanann, can you make a note in the minutes that this request was made, and let's keep it in mind? I think we'd have to look at state law, because there is some state law issue around this that allows them. I don't know if it's allowing what we have or something else, but point taken. If you live next to the place that's gonna host 12 weddings with a loud band, that might get your notice. But we do now have performance standards, which are not the noise ordinance of some of our Swisher neighbors, but should be a little bit helpful in making sure that people's quality of life isn't unduly disturbed by someone else's activities. And I think at the end of the day, it's up to the ZA, the zoning administrator, to
Yeah, I was hoping he was gonna be here today.
I think he had a conflict tonight, and with the weather, he couldn't get from there to here. I think the zoning administrator really is the one who's empowered to has the authority, the zoning board does not have the authority, I think, to enforce zoning regulations. I think
No,
that's
but
on
the
the
zoning
ZA.
administrator essentially reports to you.
Yes, and, yes. It is worth watching, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. But if there is something that's outside of the code, we have to get the message to the ZA that that has been observed, and then it's gonna be on him to chase that down. So keep your eyes peeled. I mean, everyone who's doing a business in town should be following the code, and if they're not, then they're opening themselves up to, the regulations. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.
Other business? Any public comments that's not part of other business? Thoughts, hopes, dreams? No? Okay. Hearing no other public comments and having no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks very much.
Thank you.